Okay, I'm going to do something I haven't done for a long time. I am going to just build a scrapbook. There will be no pattern for this beyond what you're seeing. And I went off-brand. I bought some Simple Stories Disney Say Cheese. And I have to say, we'll see. The papers were a little expensive to my mind. I could just be wrong, but it seems I got very little for quite a bit of money. So we'll see what happens. It's an experiment with the papers. And, you know, once in a while it's good just to take something because you like the colors, maybe the design isn't so great, and you work up something really awesome. So this is going to be a 6x6 album. The first thing I need is my cover pieces. And I use medium weight chipboard. You can use cereal boxes. You can use the lighter weight chipboard. I think you can get stuff of this weight compared to this weight, and this is like a thick cereal box. You can get this stuff at most Michaels, depends on how tiny they are. These 12 by 12 pieces I buy from Walmart online, and sometimes they're cheaper from Amazon. So I'm going to need two pieces, 6.5 by 6.5. And I like to, obviously I don't like to work down here, so let's see if we can't get a little more of the table covered. Okay, so we need two pieces of chipboard, 6.5 by 6.5 for the cover, and we're going to need one piece 6.5 by 2.25 inches. Now this 2.25 inches width is based on 5 pages with 3/8 inch gutters. So if you're gonna alter this in any way by making more pages, your gutters wider on your hinges, wait until you've got your hinges all glued together so you can measure how wide your spine piece needs to be. Okay. Now when I do my chipboard pieces, I use my cutting board that's got this kind of piece in it, and it's the only time I use this anymore, but it gives me a nice straight cutting line. I don't have to mess with my rulers, and the 6.5 is there. I don't have to mess with rulers and making sure my line's straight. Just a second. Now I'm going to take my score knife, and you've got a nice guide right inside there already cut. And if you've got a nice sharp blade, ta-da! Is all that one gets to play. Okay. And I already have one other piece cut at 6.5 square. Okay, I'm going to set these aside for the moment. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is, I don't think I like that piece. Is I'm going to do my hidden hinge. Now the hidden hinge is something, as far as I know, that Kathy King, she was Kathy Order at the time, developed and she put out in the world for us to use, and I love this system, especially for how I build scrapbooks. So I need it to be 6 1/4 inches, and my 1/4 inch mark here, as you can see, isn't here. So I just take a 1/4 inch beyond, scooch my paper. It's my one and only frustration with this rotary cutter. I mean, they had to do it somewhere. Okay. Now, don't try to cut this to fit. I mean, I know I need to take, I need to take a couple inches off the end, but it's going to depend how this scores out. And also, sometimes I'm wrong. Okay, so I use a ball tool. When I bought these, it was like $1 for a set of 3 of them. I got it off of eBay. And it's a nice artist tool. They're not expensive, and this doesn't cut through my paper like the scoring tools that come with this thing does, or any of them. So my first score is going to be in at 2 inches. You want nice wings on each end. And then I'm going to do 3/8 inches across. Okay, so now what I have is my first gutter and my first set of hinges. So this is 1. It's a great way to keep track. And use the right side, because the smaller side will cut through. Okay, so that's hinge 2. And I cut this exactly as wide as my pages, 6 1/4 inches, and we just nip the corners here just a little bit so the pages slide over easy. Okay, that's page 4. Page 5. Now, so you want to begin and end with a gutter. So 1 more score line, and then 2 inches down is at 10 inches. Okay. Down to size. So now the next thing you want to do is fold these so your hinges pop up. Okay. Okay, so now we've got 1, 2, and this is helping the working of the page by doing this. In the end, you need to have folded these both ways like this. It uses the paper so your pages will fold back and forth when you've got them built. Okay. Now, you can use score tape on this next step. Every time I have used score tape, this thing comes out wonky. It's a little longer on one side or the other. So I use my Aleene's tacky glue. Now flip it over so it looks like this, and in all of these valleys you're going to put some glue, one at a time. And you don't need tons. Now, Elaine's tacky glue is a little thicker than most craft glues, so it dries relatively quickly. Now start in the center and go out, okay? It takes just a very short time for this to be adhered enough that I can move on to the next one. Okay. Now, if you wanted to, you could have put Tyvek back here. You know, I did that for a while, but I find two things. It's probably not necessary, and it adds bulk to the hinges here, and it makes it a little more bothersome to put them together. And since I wasn't seeing any real benefit, I stopped doing it. Okay, turn it over and you have your hinges. Here they are. Okay. Now, I'm going to set these aside and we're going to go back and get our pieces. Now, I'm going to do a wrapped cover this time, and I haven't done a wrapped cover in a while. So what you want is an inch of paper all the way around, which means you ideally want 8.5 by 8.5. If all you have is an 8-inch square piece, it'll work. Don't fret, but you just got to get it centered. Okay. I've got these nice big pieces of 12 by 12. These come in a pack. Where are they? Like this. They're double-sided, but there's only 5 sheets in here. And the backs are all the same. They're all that pattern. And the fronts are this two of that. These are let's see. Oh, I was wrong. Look at this. Lovely back sides. And then the bingo is on the back of the stars, which I would never use. So I bought 2 packages of it. I bought 4 packages of it actually, because I thought I would do a couple of albums with this. But yeah, I don't know about this company. We'll see. I thought they did 12 by 12 pads, but I can't, you know, like 24 sheets of paper, but I can't find any anywhere. So I was a little disappointed, but I mostly like the paper, or I wouldn't have bought it. So we need 9.5 square, 8.5 square, 6.5 plus 2 is 8.5. So 8.5. I like these stars. Make a nice pretty back gown for building up something on. On the cover. So this is sort of on the fly, girls. Gentlemen, if I have any. I don't know that I have a lot of, or any gentleman viewers. This stuff is kind of girly. Okay, so I don't need to ink the edges. Okay. Tape runner. I buy it from Tape Jungle. I've had it for years. I love it. It's a lot less expensive than that pink one that's out there, and this will use up to a 1-inch tape. So, you know, cool. And, okay, so the first I'm going to put, and this tape is generally, it's always nice and sticky. And when it's inappropriate to use wet glue, like on a very large area, unless you absolutely must, because it'll wrinkle your paper. This is what I do. And okay. So now, for those of us a little challenged with spatial things, I'm generally pretty good, honestly, but you just take this and give yourself a good 1-inch. Just do it twice. You only need one corner to tuck your cover piece into. You just snuggle it right there, and the rest of it takes care of itself. Okay. Now, if I can find it. I recently reorganized, and you know, for me that means, oh my dear, what'd I do with it? And I'm having one of those moments. Oh my dear, what did I do with you? It's a really nice little tool. Spend any more time looking for it, and I feel like a fool. Okay, so you need to angle your corners here, and I'm going to show you with the clear blade. But you want about twice the thickness of your chipboard. Okay, so and a 1/4 inch is a good rule of thumb, if when in doubt. Oh, good. Well, the good news is it didn't fall far. And what have I done with my blade now? Oh. Oh, this is too much. There it is. All right, so I just want to take off those pesky corners, because you're going to fold this over, and oh, that was way too big. imagine what I would have done with that thing. It is so cool. Oh well. Most of us have a ruler. Let's get the other one down. Do the same thing. That was a little close. Yeah, just need my ruler. Again, I go around the edge, and you can use score tape if you want to. This is a much less expensive way. Okay, now the next thing I do is pick two of my edges. Oh, and I get to change my tape. Okay, so I've got the two sticky edges here. Now, you just sort of tease your paper over very slowly, very gently. Just get it to come up and then slowly over the edge. It's called training the paper, of all things. And if you're slow and careful, you'll prevent cracking on most papers. If it's glitter paper, if it's got any sort of glossy embellishment on it, or if it's really thick, you're going to run into possible trouble, and probably definitely run into trouble. So before you do something like cover your book with it, give it a little test and make sure it's not going to crack. If it is, you may have to change your mind. Okay? Okay, I'll do the same thing over here. Now there's this, a little extra step on the on the last two, and you always do opposite sides. Don't go around. Do opposite sides. See this piece here? You want to just sort of get it tucked in as much as you can. Got such a big slice over here. I don't know how well that's going to do. And then do your fold. And that gives you a nice clean corner. Same thing over here. And this is a Teflon bone folder. If you go look at teflonbonefolder.com, I believe, but you can Google them. And this is technically not the bone folder. It's called the lifter. And it's the most versatile of the tools. And since it's like $25, I had to decide which one I wanted. So, in this, if you put, you can actually slide and lift stuff up. It's a nice tool. Okay. There's one. Now the next thing is to mount, oops, I didn't put enough glue in there, is to mount this guy on his spine piece. Now again, you can do this with score tape. I do wet glue, and There's two reasons. It's less bulky, and I can lift it up and move it around it as I need to. Okay. So our hinge should go from here to here. Whoops. Forgot one little thing. These top and bottom edges, we want to cover them. I'm going to cut it a little wider than 2 1/4, and that's just so I get it plenty wide. And then just 2 1.5 inch pieces. Now, if you're not confident in your skills to cut it a straight line, and just use your ruler. And just tease it up around. Now we've got those ends, those raw edges covered up. Alright, so here we go with the wet glue. Don't get too sloppy, but do cover it as entirely as you can. Michaels did a wonderful thing recently, is they took all their 8.5 by 11 cardstock down to $2. And I went and bought some, and I compared it to the stuff that I had bought in the past from them, and I have to say I believe the quality is less. So while it's going to be fine at that price for doing my Cricut cuts, I'm not for sure how I'm going to like it for being the base of the scrapbook, and I will let my opinion be known as soon as I figure out what it is. Okay, so this is shorter by 1/4 of an inch, so you need to center it on your piece. Okay. the next thing is to mount this on here. Now, I probably should have done my spine piece first. But doesn't really matter. So more wet glue. Now you want to leave at least 1/8 of an inch gap between the chipboard pieces. You want your book to be able to open and close without binding. Glue is my friend. Okay. Now you want to let this set before you start manipulating it. You want this to be nice and set up, so give it probably a couple of hours before you try to close the cover. Doesn't mean you have to stop working, you just got to leave this open and flat. Okay? Now, I probably really should have put the spine paper on first. It's been so long, as I said, since I've done a wrap. So I start with mulberry paper, and it doesn't matter what I finish covering it with. This has such long fibers in it that it's not going to crack, and it's going to be a nice little extra bit of sturdiness to keep your book together as you're using it through the years, enjoying the photos you've put inside. Okay, so this needs to be 6 1/4 tall, and I don't think I want it more than 2 inches beyond each side, so one, 2, 3, 4, 5 1/2. 6 1/4 by 5 1/2. Okay, 6 1/2 by 5 1/2. Lord have mercy. See, measure, 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 measure. never use, if I can help it, tape on structural parts, and this is definitely a structural part. You do not want it coming off. See, I'm putting glue on both sides of the gaps. Okay. Here. And then go around the edges of here. And about 2 inches in on each side, because that's what I wanted to go over the covers. Okay. I don't want my corners peeling up, so I'm going to give them a nice squish of the glue around. Okay. Okay, now just remember, this is for strength. It's not for looks, so we'll do something else here later. I just don't know what it is at the moment. I do my covers sort of at the end. Now, if you're going to put a ribbon closure, the time to have placed it was before you put this piece on, so it could go underneath. Unless you were going to put an element on the back that would hold the ribbon. So there's always choices. Okay. So we've got that done. Now the inside cover pieces should be 6 1/4 square. I'm going to measure just because I made such a fool of myself 10 minutes ago. But you want them to cover this, but not go all the way out to the edge. So they're 6 1/2 square, so 6 1/4 square. And since I'm using 6 by 6 pads, I have nothing 6 1/4 except the 12 by 12s that I bought. And I think I want to use the gold. Make a pretty interior. I want the stripes. I like the stripes. And we'll take both pieces, but I'll use the rest of it for something else as we go along. So 2 pieces, 6 1/4 square. Right there. don't get the notion that you have to do the front and back the same. You just don't. This is your project. You do however it makes your heart happy. I'm just one of these people that I like continuity. So my designs tend to be a little less frou-frou and sometimes less imaginative because of that. It is a shortcoming of mine, but we're not changing it today. Okay, so the color for, let me see. Oh, I think Wild Honey will be perfect. So I use Ranger Distress ink. Any color inks. You can also use a marker. You know, you could take the fat end of a marker that is a color that matches close and go around the edges. There is no hard and fast rule, but you do need to ink the edges because that is just the white. Well, even I know that doesn't look good. And I'm not distressing. If I was distressing, I'd be going more like this. I am just inking the edges. Okay, I'm not putting any ink on the top of the paper at all, just getting these white edges covered up. You know, these are the best ink for the money. I've had these, I'm going to say 4 years, and they're still nice and wet. The only ones I've ever had dried out is because I used them all up. And I had to reink them. Okay, now that I've got that down, I am not going to glue these down because I don't know what I'm going to do with them just yet. But they're there and they're ready to go. Okay, so let's start building our pages while we're waiting for stuff to dry. And you'll need 10 sheets of 8.5 by 11 cardstock. And I thought I had drawn a pattern piece. I did. You'll need to cut 2 for each page because, you know, we're making an envelope or a sleeve, and you need to cut it 6 3/4 wide by 6 1/4 tall, and you're going to score in at a 1/2 inch. So when it's folded over, it'll be 6 1/4 inches square. Got that? Okay, so six 1/4 first, and that's just to save paper. It gives me a larger piece on this side to work with later. 6 1/4, 6 3/4. Paper's starting to cut fuzzy. I need a new blade. I score from this edge in because I want my pages to be as square as possible. So a 1/2 inch in is at 6 1/4. And 6 1/4. Okay, take your scissors and snip the corners. I have this wonderful corner chomper, and I can do 6, 7 pages at a time. So when I have, and I cut these all out at the same time, usually all my pages. So, and it just cuts a perfect little clip corner there. Okay, so the bump, fold over the bump on both pieces. Now you can use score tape here if you want. I don't want. You just snuggle these up close. And the reason I do it this way is because that way you don't have any chance of going over the top of the fold. So your page will still fold like it should. You haven't covered it with your other sheet of paper. Okay? Now the next side. Now, we've created a sleeve.